Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending upon where you are in the world, and welcome to today's webinar, Exploring the Windows IoT on ARM Journey, brought to you by Tech Online, Microsoft, Arrow, and broadcast by AspenCore. I'm Colleen Heckman, and I'll be your moderator today. We have just a few brief announcements before we begin. First, the slides will advance automatically throughout the event. At this time, we recommend you disable your pop-up blockers. You may also download a copy of the slides by clicking on the green folder icon located at the bottom of your screen. You can participate in the Q&A session by asking questions at any time during this webinar. Just type your question into the Q&A text area located to the right of the presentation window, and then click the Submit button. At the end of the webinar, we'll ask you to complete our feedback form. Your feedback will provide us with valuable information on how we can improve future events. If you're experiencing any technical problems, please type your issue into the Q&A text area, hit the Submit button, and we'll be glad to offer one-on-one assistance. And now, on to the presentation, Exploring the Windows IoT on ARM Journey. Discussing today's topic are Ken Marlin, Microsoft IoT Supplier Alliance Manager, Arrow Electronics. Based in Phoenix, Arizona, Ken is a Microsoft IoT Supplier Alliance Manager at Arrow. Ken is a three-time Microsoft MVP on Windows IoT products and has over 35 years of experience in supporting all Microsoft products and channels. Known in the industry as the Windows Champ, Ken has a YouTube channel that provides valuable information on getting started with Windows IoT products and how-to informational videos. And joining Ken today is Cindy Bruckman, Product Manager, Microsoft. Based in Toronto, Ontario, Cindy is a product manager at Microsoft working on Windows IoT. She started on the Windows IoT 3 years ago, developing lockdown features, then took on bringing Windows IoT to ARM64 devices, starting with NXP. It's with great pleasure I now hand things over to Ken to begin. Ken, take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Colleen. Thank you to everyone for joining us today. I know it's a busy time of year, but it's a good time to get some Microsoft info in your hands. I'm going to start off by setting the level playing field or remind folks on what Windows IoT is and how you buy it and if you qualify to use it, where it's used. So you'll have me for a few slides here just reminding you how to get started with Windows IoT before I hand it over to Sydney here in a moment. So when it comes to Windows IoT products, Arrow is your #1 distributor. We are an authorized distributor for the Americas and for Europe. And if you need Windows IoT products, you'll want to come to Arrow, and I have the reasons here. We're the top distributor with 80 years of Microsoft IoT experience. We're a top distributor with a dedicated Microsoft IoT YouTube channel. So the YouTube channel is dedicated to Windows IoT. We have a fresh new website at Arrow that keeps the content fresh, monthly, updated. And then we cover all the IoT products from server, SQL, and the clients, as well as Azure IoT. On top of the Windows and the Microsoft products, we also are a full solution provider as a distributor, which includes many of the other services that you see there, from financing to integration services to design and, as well, of course, licensing. If you need help with the Microsoft licensing, get with us. So the first question is always choosing the correct operating system. And our #1 competitor is usually Windows Professional, because a lot of times it comes already pre-installed on a hardware device. But ultimately, Windows Professional is for general purpose computers. It's for a computer that the end user is going to do whatever they want to with it. And it has a lot of disadvantages, including a very short life cycle, far less control over the Windows updates. In many cases, it can be more expensive. And the support is a very short time frame. It falls underneath what we call the General Availability Channel, or GAC. And in that channel, you're typically pushed forward fairly quickly within 3 years to move to the next build versions, which, when it comes to a dedicated appliance, that's not something you want. You want to be able to load the Microsoft operating system, lock it in, and get 10 years of support. So looking at the right side, the Windows IoT Enterprise LTSC family of products are specifically for fixed purpose dedicated appliances that fall into many industry verticals. The LTSC, or long-term service channel, gives you a long 10 years of support. It gives you full control over Windows updates, far more features than the Pro version. That helps you lock it down and control the appliance. It's in many cases less expensive because the pricing is based on the processor that you use within your device. And you get a single key, which really makes your life far easier. And also not listed there is re-imaging rights. So you have the right to install your application and re-image a machine with a complete turnkey custom image. I'll point out that we do have an Arrow OS Chooser tool at the bottom that really asks some questions in a decision tree format that will take you through and help you decide if you qualify, if your scenario qualifies. And if you have a strange one where you're not quite sure if it qualifies, you can always reach out to us and we'll talk through it to see if it does. And then lastly, for the industry verticals, there's many here, more than what's on the screen here. But most of our larger customers are medical, gaming, industrial automation, point of sale, cash registers, digital signage, any type of entertainment devices, kiosks, you name it. If it's fixed purpose, it would qualify for the IoT channel, and you should be using Windows IoT. And with that, I think we're going to a poll question, right?
Yes, sir.
Turn it back to you, Colleen.
Thank you, sir. Yes. So to our audience, we've got 3 polls that we'd like you to participate in. This is the first of the 3. So I'm going to go ahead and read this off to you. So which operating system are you currently using for your appliances? Windows 10 IoT Enterprise LTSC, Windows 11 IoT Enterprise, Windows Pro, Linux, Android, Mac, or older Windows Embedded. So I'll give you guys a moment there just to think about that. Which operating system are you currently using for your appliances? Windows 10 IoT Enterprise LTSC, Windows 11 IoT Enterprise, Windows Pro, Linux, Android, Mac, or older Windows Embedded. So I'll give it a few moments there, and then I'm going to push these out. And you know what, Sydney, I may ask you to comment on some of these results. Let's see what we got here. So it looks like, wow, okay, interesting. 71% on Linux. Interesting. I'll let you talk. Go ahead, Sydney. I'll hand it to you.
Sure. Thanks, Colleen. Yeah, really interesting spread. This is actually great because for those of you who are already on Windows 10 IoT Enterprise, some of what I'm about to talk about might be review, but it sounds like for the most part it won't be. So that's excellent. So moving ahead, I'll start by talking a bit about what Windows IoT Enterprise really is. First and foremost, Windows IoT Enterprise is Windows Enterprise. So everything you can do on your Windows Enterprise device is available to you with Windows IoT Enterprise. Windows IoT is ready to go out of the box with all features included from day one, making it incredibly efficient to develop and deploy both user-centric and headless IoT solutions and bring your devices to market quickly. You have access to thousands of existing Windows applications, and you can also leverage a huge ecosystem of ISVs, SIs, and OEMs to help build out your solution. We also have tools in place to help you customize the image, the OS image to your needs, but I'll get into more detail on that later on. With Windows for IoT, your devices are protected with world-class security built right into Windows IoT Enterprise. You also have access to lockdown features to customize the user experience for public-facing devices, and can plug right into Microsoft's management suite for your IoT devices, just like you would for your business devices. And all of this, of course, is backed by Microsoft, who's been a trusted partner and platform provider for the embedded industry for over 25 years. Windows IoT also has a unique support structure that was designed specifically to support IoT device partners. Our long-term servicing channel, like Ken mentioned, offers 10 years of servicing and support at no extra charge to extend the lifetime of your devices in the field. We also have the general availability or annual channel for access to the latest features as soon as they come out. All this is to say, Windows IoT Enterprise is identical to Windows Enterprise, bringing all of the features that you're familiar with to the IoT space. So now we're bringing all of this goodness to ARM devices, and I want to be clear on why we're doing this and the opportunity that we see here. From a Windows IoT enterprise perspective, this ARM market is an area that we've really hardly touched. Some of you may recall our silicon support has been primarily x86 and x64 based, with our ARM offerings more or less limited to Qualcomm, who until recently weren't huge contenders in the IoT space. So we see this as a huge untapped opportunity for Windows IoT and for Microsoft. If any of you have watched Ignite a few weeks ago or kept up with Microsoft announcements over the past year and a half or so, you'll notice that the push towards ARM silicon is company-wide, and bringing Windows IoT Enterprise to ARM is just one piece of it. So when we talk about ARM devices growing in popularity, it's of course with good reason. ARM chips tend to be lower cost and consume less power, which is not only attractive to customers wanting to keep their operating expenses low, but it also brings a sustainability angle to the conversation. ARM devices also often have better performance to power ratio than a similar class x64 device might, which makes them a great, efficient choice across nearly all industries. The thing with the ARM ecosystem thus far is that it's quite fragmented, and in most cases, it champions a sort of do-it-yourself approach to finding the bits and pieces that you need to build the device that you're trying to bring to market. This is where Windows IoT Enterprise really fills a gap. Customers who are looking for a more turnkey approach, eliminating the need for multiple third parties, getting what they need in box with features that they are already familiar with, that's something that you really can only get with Windows. So with that, I want to touch on some of the features and capabilities in Windows that are of particular interest and importance to ARM customers. First, we have graphics support. The biggest selling point of this is that it is all included in box, eliminating the need to go out and find and pay a third party to do graphics for your app. Windows includes an extensive catalog of graphics and app frameworks that are honed over 20 years of industry use. We also support hardware acceleration for both 2D and 3D graphics to allow you to make full use of the GPU capabilities on your device. If you're familiar with graphics, you might be familiar with the DirectX graphics APIs, which we at Microsoft know well for being the drivers of AAA games like Fortnite and Halo. These APIs are supported in Windows on ARM to allow you to create beautiful and realistic graphics in your apps. All of these capabilities are included in box with Windows to enable you to create these beautiful UIs without having to go out and license from a third party. We actually already have quite a few customers leveraging these in devices such as kiosks and digital signs, industrial HMIs, and point of sale systems. And we hear it consistently as a reason why customers keep choosing Windows. In a similar vein, we have app compatibility. Windows IoT Enterprise is Windows Enterprise, like I mentioned. So it brings with it the entire app ecosystem that exists today on Windows. This is a first for ARM as well, enabling you to run all sorts of apps on your ARM IoT device. We also support emulation of apps compiled for x86 and x64, which can help reduce or completely eliminate any porting work required if you already have an app for another architecture. We have a few customers already who have drastically shortened their time to market as a result of the emulation capabilities being sufficient for their app, saving them the dev work of recompiling their x86 app for ARM. Another pillar of Windows is backwards compatibility. You can run apps from past versions of Windows on your Windows 10 ARM device as though they were written for Windows 10. This also gives our customers peace of mind that when they build on Windows, their apps are built to last. Manageability is a pillar of what's promised with Windows, and one of the main reasons why customers keep choosing Windows. With Windows IoT on ARM, you can leverage Microsoft's top-of-the-line management suite straight out of the box, like Intune and Microsoft Endpoint Manager. This eliminates the overhead of having to learn, or worse, even create a whole new system if your IT admins are already familiar with managing Windows devices. We also, of course, have Windows Update, which offers a simple and reliable way of keeping not only the OS itself, but also the drivers and the apps on your device up to date. So probably the biggest worry I see from customers when they hear about Windows IoT Enterprise on ARM is how is Windows going to fit on my tiny little ARM device? Windows Enterprise is so big, there's no way it's going to fit on my headless gateway, for example. And that's valid to an extent, but that's why we have embedded into the operating system ways to shrink down the image and include only the features that you need for your device. You can remove packages and select and deselect feature sets to eliminate bulk from features that you might not be using anyway. And this allows us to still offer a huge range of capabilities in the operating system, but also understand that most IoT devices are going to serve a single purpose and will only need a small subset of these features. We've also created tools to help make navigating the image customization process a little bit easier so that you can explore where your options are and shrink your image down to the proportions that you need to run on devices with as little as 2 gigs of RAM and 16 gigs of storage. And lastly, the support story that I mentioned earlier. Windows IoT Enterprise on ARM has the same support story as Windows IoT Enterprise on x64, x86, with 2 channels to choose from. The long-term servicing channel offers 10 years of support with only crucial security updates to keep your device safe in the field. So this is ideal for customers who are creating fixed-purpose devices. They don't want to worry about a feature update coming down and potentially messing with their configuration. They just want their device to work out in the field, and they want the patches that are going to keep it safe for up to 10 years. On the flip side, we have the general availability channel, which offers 36 months of support with security and feature updates. So this gives you access to the latest features as soon as they become available for customers who want their device to stay on the cutting edge and get things right as they drop. So before we go any further, I'll present to you the second poll question. So I'd love to know, are you interested in testing the Windows IoT on ARM for your next project? Are you interested in testing Windows IoT on ARM for your next project? Give a couple minutes to answer just before we move on. All right, looks like we're getting there. So all of this that I just talked about is supported on both some boards from NXP and from Qualcomm. From NXP, we have the IMX8 family, including the IMX8M, 8M Mini, 8M Nano, 8M Plus, and the IMX8X, as well as the IMX9 III. From Qualcomm, we have the QCS 6490 and QCS 5430, which are also available as QCM models to include 5G capabilities. Looking ahead to what is coming down the pipeline, we just actually had a BSP release last week, perfect timing, bringing some feature improvements to the IMX8 family, including support for D3D9 or Direct3D9 with GPU. We've added support for dual displays on the IMX8X, as well as support for the internal RTC, so real-time clock driver. And you can now update firmware over the air for all SoCs in the IMX8 family. Looking ahead to next year, our next BSP release will be this coming June, which will be our big GA release for Windows 11 on the IMX9 III. This is highly anticipated and is going to be our first NXP SoC that supports Windows 11. So for all of you thinking about how you can get your hands on some Windows on ARM devices, I'd like to call out a couple of considerations to keep in mind when starting to build with Windows on ARM. First, it's a good start to take stock of the peripherals that your device will need and understand which drivers are available. Many are included either in Windows IoT Enterprise or in the BSP from NXP. But in the case where you want to use a peripheral that doesn't have a driver already included, you should understand what that means for your product. If you can develop that driver, or if you'll need to have someone else do that for you. If that is something that might throw a wrench in your plans, then catching this early enough can allow you the time to maybe pivot to a driver that's already supported and save yourself a potential headache down the line. Similarly, if you're working on a next-gen device or something that's going to leverage existing software, take a look at the compatibilities between your former platform and this one, and what that means for your app, whether you'll need to port it, emulate it, or recompile it. It's worth playing around with the emulation capabilities as well, and see if they might work for you. And if they don't, then understanding what the porting effort might look like. We actually have a whole new set of documentation coming on this topic that'll be up within a month. And finally, get some hardware and start testing. Play around with it. We have a great video for you to check out that guides you through the quick start process on an NXP IMX 8M Plus board. And Ken will talk a little bit later about his videos on here as well. On that same note, we have quite a few partners who already have boards on the market available for you to try out. So hopefully you can find one that works for you and get started. And of course, don't forget to reach out to your Aero rep for support and to get the OS. And with that, I'll turn it back to Ken.
Some Thank you, Sydney. Yeah, the hardware options, we have a lot of these options here at Aero. So if you're interested, reach out. We can get you some of these boards in your hands to start testing, start playing around with them. We've played around with just about all of these on this list here and have some experience with them. And I am in the process of making a video similar to Sydney's video. Sydney's video is awesome. I absolutely say go check that out. And I'll have a video up soon too on the IMX 8 Plus board. But no, that's awesome. So the YouTube channel, make sure you go check it out. As of this morning, we actually crossed over 6,000 subscribers on that channel. And I usually like to point out that subscribing to a YouTube channel is free. So it doesn't cost anything to subscribe to a YouTube channel. Go out there, hit the subscribe, hit the alert, and then you'll be notified of new videos. Lots of new videos out there and lots of new ones coming, including a video on installation on the IMX 8 Plus. As well as the video that's on the right, which is an NXP Qualcomm comparison video. Check those out. Go out to the channel and check that out. So the poll question, we got one more poll question here. Will you consider using Windows IoT on ARM for the future projects? So let's give it a little moment here for everyone to make some choices here. We are really curious. We obviously, for Windows on ARM, Linux is a big competitor. I was actually really glad to see the earlier poll results because that tells me we have a lot of Linux folks on the call, which is great. And we would like to get some little time for you to test it out, test out the Windows option. So that's looking good. Okay, awesome. I think, oh no, I've got one more. All right. So make sure and visit our Aero Microsoft website. And that's where we have a lot of content on ARM stuff. We have a ton of ARM stuff out there, including a Windows on ARM guide, a Windows on ARM blog, a Windows on ARM application brochure. So the easy way to get there, I know there's some links here that you can't see, but the easy way to get there is aero.com/winiot. Super easy to get to our website, aero.com/winiot. And then you can look for those resources on Windows on ARM. And I think we're going to say thank you but stay on because we're going to start the question and answer session. So if you have questions, start asking them. And I think I turn it back to Colleen at this point. Colleen?
Yeah. Thank you, Ken. Thank you. And congrats on your YouTube channel subscribers. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Very exciting. Yeah, very cool to hear. All right, folks. So we are now moving to our question and answer portion of the event. So if you have not done so already, you can type your question into the Q&A text box located to the right of the presentation window and then hit the submit button. We'll get to as many questions as we can today. If we don't get to your individual questions, someone will get back to you with more detail after the program. So let's get started. So I'm going to go ahead and shoot one out here. So how is the difference from the WinCE program of the past, i.e. how do I create drivers, et cetera, for my embedded platforms?
Sure, I can take that one. Windows IoT Enterprise is quite different from Windows CE. I would say the biggest difference is Windows IoT Enterprise is based off of Windows Enterprise, is identical to Windows Enterprise. That would be the biggest difference. As far as customers moving from Windows CE to Windows 10 IoT Enterprise or Windows 11 IoT Enterprise, especially bringing that to ARM, there's definitely going to be some translation between folks who were using Windows CE moving to Windows 10 IoT. It's definitely not a one-to-one comparison, especially the devices that were on the lower end of things with CE. Windows 10 IoT Enterprise might not be the right fit. But for a fair amount of them, especially with the modularity that we have and the removable packages from Windows IoT Enterprise, there's a lot that can translate. So I would recommend you check out our documentation as far as guidance on developing the drivers moving from one to the other. Or feel free to reach out to Arrow for support as well.
Thank you, Sydney. Thank you for that. Excellent. So next question asks, does the ARM version have its own part numbers?
I'll take that one.
Okay.
It falls underneath the what we call the processor value licensing model, which is there's a processor placemat that gives you part numbers and pricing based on which processor you're choosing. And so most of the NXP processors fall under the base value, which is the cheapest option. And then for Qualcomm, those are a little higher performing ARM processors, and they fall under value. So there, you would use the value license option for Windows 10 LTSC 2021. And so they're not just the base license options pretty much cover all NXP. So yes, there's a specific part number for base license options for that, and then a value for Qualcomm at this point. And then as more processors become available, they'll probably get mixed into that processor chart.
Excellent. Thank you, Ken. Okay, moving along here. Next question asks, is there separate media for the ARM version that must be downloaded?
Yeah, I'll take that. Yeah, absolutely. So there's definitely an ARM version. It doesn't install the way that you're used to if you're a big x86 person. It installs very differently. And yes, it is a separate media option. Get with us at Arrow. We will help you with your options for downloading that media. If you have a CLA agreement, you have access to all the media, and we can help with that and get you the right media for the version that you're going to test out.
Perfect. Actually, that leads me into my next question, I think. If I want to test it out, how do I get started?
Yeah, absolutely. So the link's right here that you're looking at under the thank you. Shoot us an email, windowsiot@arrow.com, and say you want to test it out. And we'll start that discussion with you, figure out if you have a CLA. If you're brand new to Windows IoT and you don't have a CLA agreement, same email, we can help with that as well. Get you signed up, get you an agreement in place. It's no cost and no minimum purchase. Once the agreement's signed and approved by Microsoft, you have access to the entire Windows IoT family of products for internal test and development, including the Windows on ARM products, and we can help you with that.
Awesome. I would also like to point out that there is a Get Started with that CLA widget on the audience console. So feel free to just click on that and go on over there and check it out. That's for your convenience, audience. So next question asks, will the new Windows 11 IoT Enterprise LTSC support ARM processors?
I can take that one. Yes, it will. I mentioned earlier that the 9.3, we will be GAing the NXP's IMX 9.3 with Windows 11 this coming June. And everything from Qualcomm, or well, the two, 6490 and 5430 will support Windows 11 IoT Enterprise LTSC as well. It's just the NXP IMX 8 family that'll be Windows 10 only.
Excellent. Thank you, Sydney. And it looks like we've got one more question here. You did not mention the automotive market. Do you aim at that as well?
Yeah, I can take that one too. Yes, definitely. The NXP's IMX 8X actually is targeted specifically for automotive customers. So that's totally something that you could do.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Sydney and Ken, for a fantastic presentation and Q&A session. To our audience, for more information related to today's webinar, please visit any of the resource links located in the green folder icon at the bottom of your screen. Within the next 24 hours, you will receive a personalized follow-up email with details and a link to today's presentation on demand. So thank you for attending today's webinar, Exploring the Windows IoT on ARM Journey, brought to you by Tech Online, Microsoft, Arrow. This webinar is copyright 2023 by Aspen Core. The presentation materials are owned by or copyright by Tech Online, Microsoft, and Arrow, and the individual speakers are solely responsible for their content and opinions. On behalf of our guests, Microsoft and Arrow, I'm Colleen Heckman. Thank you for your time today, and we hope you have a great day. Thank you.